Jigden Tori Changto Tawe me, Silam Cambe to be Nyesune, Deleta or Tinjan Lamata, Jesu Kimbe de la Gubetu. Your Holiness, His Eminence Gandhenti Rinpoche, Most Venerable Kambo Lama, Honorable Gary Hawk, Honorable Lobsang Nyatala, Your Excellency, Kalun Tripa Professor Samdhong Rinpoche, Your Excellency Gary Rinpoche, Venerable members of the Sangha, and most distinguished chairs, speakers, panelists, and the conference participants. It is my honor to welcome you to this meeting of the International Conference on Tibetan Buddhism. My name is Lobsang Tenzin, and I'm the director of Emory Tibet Partnership, a program designed to bridge and enrich the Western and Tibetan traditions here at Emory and beyond. For an auspicious beginning to this conference, I would like to invite the Venerable Monks of Drepung Losering Monastery to offer the brief invocation chants. Thank you for these auspicious prayers. The Emery-Tibet Partnership is honored to facilitate this international conference, co-hosted by Emory University and the Office of Tibet, New York, with the support from the Conservancy for Tibetan Arts and Culture in Washington, D.C., and Drepung Losling Monastery here in Atlanta. The timing for this conference could not be more appropriate. It has been 5 decades now since Tibetan Buddhism has spread out beyond the areas in which it was traditionally practiced. To help us think through where we stand and how to move forward collectively, this conference will address 6 main themes: Tibetan Buddhism's encounter with modern science, the Tibetan Buddhism and social engagement, translating the Dharma, Tibetan Buddhism in the modern academy, surviving modernity in traditionally Tibetan Buddhist areas, Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism in modern Western culture. It fills me with awe to see how people of Tibet, a relatively small population, were able to so completely incorporate in an authentic way the Buddhist tradition as it existed in ancient India. And not only did the Tibetans preserve it, but they also complemented it with new insights, new commentaries, giving their total focus to this tradition for centuries. This tradition, which came to be known as the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, spread out beyond its geographical boundaries to areas such as Mongolia and Buryatia, and now even to almost the whole of the Western world. This amazing legacy of Tibet is a true gift to humanity and the world as a whole. It is a beacon of hope in these troubled times when our world is so divided on many fronts across cultures, religious traditions, and intellectual disciplines. In all of this, the role played by the line of successive Dalai Lamas has been crucial since the time of the 3rd and the 5th Dalai Lamas. The Dalai Lamas have helped to disseminate the wisdom and compassion embodied in Tibetan Buddhist tradition to various regions in the world. Particularly now, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama has played a key role in sharing the richness of this tradition throughout the world. It is therefore such an honor to have His Holiness preside today over this conference, which will investigate how the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, which so authentically preserves the Nalanda tradition, as His Holiness has called, can be a vibrant source for the flourishing of humanity, global peace, and the well-being of all. And now it is my honor to invite Dr. Gary Hawk, the Vice President and Deputy to the President of Emory University, to make some remarks. From the very beginning of Emory-Tibet Partnership, Emory's partnership with the Tibetan institutions of higher learning, Dr. Hawk has provided invaluable encouragement, guidance, and leadership. Dr. Gary Hawk.
Good morning to all of you. Greetings. I bring salutations on behalf of President Jim Wagner, the faculty, the staff, the alumni, and the students of Emory University. It's a great delight to have you here and to welcome you on behalf of our community. As an internationally engaged community of scholars, Emory is indeed privileged and honored to welcome this august gathering, this exuberant gathering on this auspicious occasion. As you examine the past achievements, the present challenges, and the future prospects of Tibetan Buddhism. As an ethically engaged community, Emory University takes inspiration from your own personal and collective commitments to working toward and effecting positive transformation in the world. I might say that the religious heritage out of which Emory University has grown is the heritage of Christianity, specifically in the form of Methodism. And it is a tenet of Methodist Christianity that our claims of faith need to be examined in the light of the word of Scripture, the reality of experience, and the application of the powers of the mind, especially through reason, to examining claims of truth and claims of faith. And as we have learned from His Holiness through his many visits to our campus, this is a tradition, a tenet shared by Tibetan Buddhism. That is, that all claims must be examined in the light of reason and experience. And so it is altogether appropriate, fitting, that Emory University and this conference should collaborate over these next couple of days. We wish you every success in your work together during this time. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Hawk, for this warm welcome and for your support for the work that we do here. It is my honor now to invite Honorable Lobsang Nyingdala, the representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to the Americas, and the co-chair of this conference, to give his remarks.
I feel highly honored to welcome His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, honorable dignitaries, learned Buddhist scholars and representatives of Dharma centers around the world to this International Conference on Tibetan Buddhism. In September 2003, the Office of Tibet provided such forum by organizing the Conference of Tibetan Dharma Centers of the Americas at Garrison Institute in New York, which drew substantial participation of Buddhist leaders, scholars, and practitioners in the Americas. Many of them emphasized the need for continuity of such gathering to engage in substantive discussion about the prevailing state of Tibetan Buddhism and how best to move forward collectively. Today, after a considerable gap, we were able to convene this conference in partnership with Emory University, who not only facilitated the smooth planning process for a conference of this nature, but also brought the conference to a new level with a wider agenda, taking into consideration the evolving role of Tibetan Buddhism in modern society. The changing nature of our times demands that all of us work together to preserve the essence of Buddha's teachings and to ensure the best way for the Dharma to continue to serve humanity without any boundaries. Considering the importance of this conference, we are greatly encouraged by the response and support we have received from the most venerable spiritual masters, distinguished scholars, leaders, and practitioners of Tibetan Buddhism. We are also fortunate that this conference coincided with His Holiness the Dalai Lama's visit to Emory University, and that His Holiness has kindly accepted our request to inaugurate the conference. We are extremely grateful to the faculty and administration of Emory University for their vision and dedication in exploring the integration of science and spirituality for the betterment of humanity. I hope that the conference delegates will find this an educational and memorable gathering. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lobsang Nyingdala. And now it is my great honor to request His Holiness to give the inaugural address for this conference.
I think better to speak Tibetan, maybe. Of course, at the beginning, indeed, I am very happy and great honor because inaugurate this conference. I have quite a number of people gathered here. including some scientists. I'm very happy. Since tragedy was occurred on Tibet, and particularly since 1959, fortunately, quite a number of learned gurus and also scholars and students escape. And since our main sort of concern is Tibetan Buddhist culture with Tibetan Buddhism, it's something not only ancient one, but also relevant to today's world. Therefore, we really make every effort for preservation of Tibetan Buddhist culture and Buddhism. So in India, now last 51 years, we quite well established various Buddhist tradition, and also including Pen tradition. So I think over 10,000 monk students carry study, and also we found opportunity to help or to serve some Mongolian students, few hundred, and also I think from Himalayan range over 5,000-6,000. They also now study in our various different monastic institutions and also nunnery. So meantime, in 60s, 70s, gradually some our guru visit in different parts of the world, and then eventually they also set some sort of Buddhist center. Although our basic sort of policy or thinking, we never try to conversion. We missionize. We believe it is much safer and suitable, useful to preserve one's own tradition. So in the West, Judeo-Christian tradition is the background. However, among millions of people from such a tradition, some individual, not like here, most of you, traditionally non-Buddhist. So you see, you find the Buddhist tradition, Buddhist way of approach is something not only new, but also is something more suitable to one individual. So, one way, the tragedy, one way, so very sad, very destructive. One way, it creates new opportunity. And then also, now in modern time, the distance is not much relevance. So now, speak. 당연히 디슈인 되어서 특이한데 딩그 가서 그 시주나 소나 시제 Tempa Jiden comes to Chamba, Tempa Nushin, Sawa, Tenzi Punushi to Timber, Tempa Yurin, the Treshi Shop, Songa Nanshin. Ta Sangha Tempa, Zamita Net Yuri. Ta Karkashamur Slona, Tenzi Punushi to Timber said Kashmuri.
So just as the monks chanted one of the verses in the invocation chanting, there is a particular prayer which says that the teacher, the Buddha, comes into the world, and may the teacher, the Buddha, come to the world, and may the teaching shine brightly like a sun in the world, and may the upholders of the teaching be harmonious among themselves, and may the teaching of the Buddha remain for long. So just as the invocation of this prayer states, the fact of this world is that the Buddha's teaching is part of the global heritage, and the Buddha Dharma is part of that religious landscape. So what is important on our part is for all these upholders of the Buddha's teaching to be harmonious.
Frankly speaking, why we try to promote harmony among the different religious traditions, that means Christianity, Islam, different Hinduism, Jainism, and Judaism, and so on. Within Buddhist, now for example, the relation or contact between Theravada tradition or the Pali tradition and Sanskrit tradition is not adequate. Then within Tibetan community, Tibetan tradition, it seems to me, each emphasis too much, the branches, forgetting or neglecting about the basic.
The main trunk.
Kanda, Yagadi di Kacheche, Dombudi, Tanasharame research.
So sometimes there is a tendency on our part to emphasize the different branches and then remain stuck there rather than really also recognizing the commonality of the root, which is the main trunk.
One sort of the experience. Last year, when I was in Melbourne, Australia, there was a World Parliament of Religion. There's a meeting there. There are two Burmese monks there. So they send a sort of message. They want to meet me, to see me. So I always have sort of deep respect or admiration for Burmese Buddhist tradition. So when they come, I put my own robe, the yellow robe, and then you see two monks, very nice monk. And then they told me, we are follow our same teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. But we have big differences. Then immediately I felt, see the way the Kasoda was the impression, Tibetan Buddhism. I think firstly, in 20th century, this is some scholars describe Tibetan Buddhism as Lamaism. On top of three refugees, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, Guru. So there is, so looks, you see, Guru is more important than Buddha. Personal experience may be true. Guru, direct contact. Buddha, 2,500 years ago. But the Guru happened because of Buddha's teaching. So ultimately, Buddha is the main sort of the preacher, main teacher. And then also, Tibetan, I think, found the sacred dance, right, with mask. And also, you see, each monastery, every year, carrying some puja, suppose destroy, or say, the negative evil forces. But now shows it failed. I think over at least, I think, last several centuries, every monastery is at the end of the year carrying these kind of puja and dance. These become something like the social custom, losing the real essence of Buddha Dharma. And people chanting, and learn by heart, take books, whole day chanting, but without knowing the meaning. What use? And real Buddha Dharma become something like social way of life. Not really serious how to develop these inner spiritual quality and how to climb step by step up to Buddhahood. Whole Buddha Dharma become like lip service. It's sad. That does not mean, of course, entire Tibetan like that. No. There are people really spend because of the whole their life like hermit. So then, and then also, you know, the in Buddha's time, the main holder of Buddha Dharma carried by monk. And then Tibet case, 8th century, when Khenpo Shubhikator.
During the time of Master Shantarakshita and Padmasambhava and the Emperor Tizong Dezen,
Tudu Rojung Murmikte, Koyagajang Lute, Seni, Tiga the Samyeg Lingti Sunduzane, any Dundung Awaling, and Miu Samdeling, Tudu Loveling, Satil Sundo.
So you can see that there was an establishment of separate spiritual communities, communities of monastic members, communities of lay practitioners referred to as the white-clad lay practitioners, and also there were specific centers for meditation, and also centers for and the tantric practitioners and so on. And then centers for translations and translators.
So eventually, some lay people also, you see, take, I think, genuine, the responsibility to carrying the teaching of Buddha Dharma. Then also, of course, some rubbish teachers also used to happen. Some corrupted one. Because, you see, the Lama or Tulgu, eventually, unfortunately, it becomes something like social institution, social status, not based on real Dharma qualification. So a lot of sort of corruptions. So I felt, when the two monks mentioned that, they thought Tibetan tradition, no Vinaya practice. So I explained, yes, there's differences. Your tradition, Theravada sort of lineage. We Mula Savasiddhavada, out of 4 main branches. Subdivisions, then 18 divisions in Vipasek sort of tradition. And Vinaya belongs to that tradition. So I mentioned the Theravada Pratimoksha, mentioned about 220 precepts. The Sanskrit tradition, or Sanskrit sort of Pratimoksha, according to Savasiddhavatan, 253. And differences not on importance of the points, precepts, but minor. So I mentioned, then is it too monk? Really, did they show some kind of surprise? They felt Tibetan tradition, only Ngakpa, lay people, not real monk.
Monastic tradition.
So like that. So we, because these things, sometimes you see too much emphasis on branches. Like the Nyingma tradition, again, Rinpoche always say, Nyingma kamati shunche, sawache, dharmati di nusudayares.
Khyentse Rinpoche used to say that within the Nyingma tradition and the scriptural kind of heritage, the Kama, the scriptural collection, and that tradition should be really seen as the foundation, and the Dharma tradition, the revealed tradition, and its teachings should be seen more as a form of a refinement, something that would sharpen the knife.
So sometimes, you see, each Lama, each monastery emphasizes one's own sort of lineage about Dharma. And like Kagye, because of the Kamenang, Kagye,
so within the Kama, the scriptural collection, the 8 main Kama traditions are very important.
Rinzin Beijing, Tisundwa, Kagye Namshanal, Mangashanta Chat Jux, Kagye Chat Mochu Asundo.
For example, Rinzin Pelton, in his commentary on the Kagye, in fact states that if it is necessary to let go and allow certain lineages to die, let others die, but make sure that this lineage of the Kagye instruction never dies.
So similarly, among this Gilgul tradition, also sometimes there's too much emphasis on one's sort of what's the Kompachadamiti Kachetzi, Jabse Sumdia Dos Kachun Sorch,
So similarly, in the Gilgul institution, sometimes we see the tendency to emphasize the textbooks authored by the founding Lama of the monastic institution.
Different
colleges, and then kind of treating the writings of Tsongkhapa and his 2 principal disciples as being somewhat secondary.
And then basically all, sort of lacking to go to those root texts wrote by Nalendra masters, and of course Buddha's own sort of scriptures. So last now, I think more than 40 years, number of occasions, I asked those big monastic institutions, now please study more these root texts. Then another sort of thing. No, not much time. Finish now. So now is my 2 points I want to tell you here. like this kind of meeting, known each other, and also you see some discuss and exchange different experiences. And more centers, more and more sort of people, they are also, you see, naturally, also you see danger of corruptions, danger of degeneration. So we must discuss about these potential danger. It is, I always say,
I always say that let others do the praising and so on, commenting and so on. But within ourselves, we should seek out the potential faults and ways to remedy them.
That's important. That's one thing. The second, as I mentioned earlier, now all centers should pay more attention about our root, the traditions. That's an island tradition. All the Tibetan traditions. Pambo also. So before Buddhism came, this is different. But after Buddhism came, the many was a scholar from many master from the Tibetan tradition, which study Buddhism and also practice Buddhism. These Nalanders are also the masters like that. So all our root come from Nalanda. So it is important to pay more attention, study these root texts. Then there's common for everybody. If you too much emphasis on the branch, then there are so many differences. Branch supposed to sit there,
so branches are generally there to actually help strengthen the root and the main trunk.
So
of course, you know, if you forget the main trunk and the roots, how can a branch alone even survive?
There sometimes people call Khasa age, new age. So one time in France, I noticed some people they prefer new age. You know, isn't it?
His Holiness is referring to Matthew because this was in France.
Something you see take from here, something take from here, something take from here. See, of course, individual, if some really because of the interest that, okay, that's up to individual. But our main tradition should not like that. Our main tradition must, because of authentic, up to these Nalanda masters and finally Buddha himself. That's very important. I think now finish. So please discuss frankly, seriously, with sense of responsibility. And then one word, nga tishin yu san ti chamgung ga chammun na ya kasa chusana ti. Chonga chimbu tai ni dungme semjen tarji sho.
So I would like to conclude by citing from Maitriya's prayer on loving kindness. There are two lines which says that through the loud drum of Dharma teachings, may the sufferings of all beings be dispelled.
So we Buddhists, not only sort of liberate oneself, but the whole purpose of that practice, serving for other, benefit for other. So serving to other in various levels, in various forms, as much as possible. That's important. Then in other words, Buddhism change. Tambajik dem mean sumdushin. Pangtu kyo pachi seven, dini mato ranga kyo and on the temple ditu souls. And the shu de disondoa. Tatal tuba tambani, common so chin tata. And Kasa, Timon, top than temple to Ringani, Tapan Deba, Pagyukis.
Another quotation, now that I'm talking about citations, something that came to my mind is a rather sad one from Vasubandhu, where he talks about the state of Buddha's Dharma at a particular time, where he says that the eyes of the Dharma teachings is coming to get closed, and then the great masters who can attest to the authenticity of the teachings have come to kind of, are disappearing, and then there are few individuals who, without fully understanding the depth of the Buddha's teaching, seems to be actually creating great disturbances within the defiling the purity of the Dharma. And then in the next verse, he goes on to say that.
No, not next verse. Next verse, another thing that I can't remember. Then the next, that did it. 대달 투버다게 때문에 꽁만 쏙 신자다. 지금은 또는 덴베 투수 링네니 타반데버다게 바유지서.
So then he actually gives an advice to those who wish to seek liberation to pay heed, because the teachings of the Buddha is like a life force, and one should not kind of take it lightly, and therefore, especially those who wish to seek Dharma, seek liberation, to really seek the true teachings of the Dharma, of the Buddha.
So, I think this conference can bring some deeper sort of awareness about each individual's responsibility. Thank you.
Your Holiness, thank you so much for sharing with us your great wisdom and for setting the tone for the next 2 days for this conference. We will take to our heart your injunction to work towards the preservation of the authentic spirit of the Nalanda tradition by maintaining the harmony that among the various traditions of the Dharma here, and all the pieces of advice that Your Holiness has given us today as we meet and discuss over the following sessions. And we hope that this will lead to the flourishing of the Tibetan Buddhism throughout the world and towards the alleviation of the suffering of the world. His Holiness must now leave for another event at Emory, but this opening session will continue a little longer. So please remain in the hall after His Holiness has left it. Thereafter, Dr. Greg Kruklak, the President of Conservation of Tibetan Arts and Culture, will introduce the next speaker to you. Thank you very much.
Good morning again. My name is Greg Kruglak. I'm the president of the Conservancy for Tibetan Art and Culture, one of the co-hosts of this event. It's truly an honor to be here today and to see this conference flourish and to have received the advice of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I think we're all inspired to move forward now and have a very successful conference. I'm here now to introduce our next guest, who I was privileged to work with for the last, actually 2 months in Mongolia. This is the His Eminence Choge Khampa Lama, the head of Ganden Techeling Monastery in Mongolia and the head of the Mongolian Buddhist Center. I have come to appreciate the enormous challenges facing Mongolia and the reemergence of Buddhism in Mongolia today. As many of you know, Buddhism in Mongolia went through an extremely difficult period in the 1930s. It was virtually eliminated under the Soviet occupation. monasteries, virtually all the monasteries were destroyed. Many of the monks were killed, imprisoned, put in the army. And they're only now beginning to reemerge from this very difficult period. And it is thanks to leaders such as His Eminence Khampa Lama that this is possible. They are struggling under conditions that are truly difficult to imagine. And it was a privilege to work with Khampa Lama and his colleagues at Ganden Monastery to see and to really begin to understand firsthand how they are struggling and how they are devoting their lives to helping Buddhism reemerge in Mongolia. We held a conference 2 weeks ago that dealt with the future of Mongolian Buddhism, but we also had a separate meeting. This is with many distinguished lamas from all over the world, lamas and scholars who came, and we were able to discuss the Nalanda tradition as well. It was a very successful meeting, and His Eminence Khampa Lama is here now to give us a short briefing about the results of that meeting, and it's my honor to welcome you. And he will be speaking through his translator, Venerable Munkbutar.
За Монголын бурхан шашны шашин сэдвт олон улсын анхдугаар эзэм шинжилгээний бахарлын тухай би энд та бүхэндээ айлтгах гэсэн юм аа. Дээрхийн гэгээн Далай багш болон өөр олон хотод хувилгаалуудын соёрхон морилсан энэ чухал хурал дээр үг хэлж байгаадаа би туйлын баяртай байна. Юуны өмнө энэхүү сайхан хурлыг зохион байгуулж байгаа Эморогийн их сургууль, Төвдийн алба, Бэрээвэн лосоолын хийд болон Төвдийн урлаг соёлыг хадгалан хамгаалах төвийнхэнд шин сэтгэлийн талархлыг хэлье.
Report on their first international conference on Mongolian Buddhism. I am humbled by the honor conferred on me to speak at such prestigious gathering blessed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and many other eminent Rinpoches. Before I start my brief presentation, I would like to thank Emory University, the Office of Tibet, the Drepung Losol Monastery in Atlanta, and the Conservancy for Tibetan Art and Culture, with a special thanks to Emory University for hosting this wonderful event. It gives me a very great pleasure to inform you about the first international conference on Mongolian Buddhism, which took place in September at Ganden Tekchunli Monastery, the center of Mongolian Buddhists in Ulaanbaatar. I would like to emphasize how extremely fruitful and successful it was. With the blessing of Ganden Tree Rinpoche and other eminent Rinpoches, the conference discussed in depth of Mongolia's role in the spread of Buddhism before examining subjects such as future of Mongolian Buddhism, Buddhism and science, the environment, social action, the role of women in Mongolian Buddhist society, and the ethics in business and leadership. The whole conference was broadcast on the radio to Ulaanbaatar, and there were many requests from the public that this event should take place annually or at least every 2 years. To my mind, this event served as a very significant symbol of the unity of the countries following this sublime tradition and a sign that we can work together in the future. I am immensely grateful to all the lamas, scholars, and social activists who came to take part in this momentous meeting. In particular, let me say how pleased I was that my good friend Richard Gere was able to join us. His presence created tremendous interest among the younger generation in the Buddha Dharma in Mongolia. I want also to share with you the fact that my government, the government of Mongolia, is supportive. Our foreign minister, the Honorable Zandan Shatter, personally came to Kandan Monastery to address the conference. After the two-day public conference, a smaller gathering of delegates took place, which included not only Mongolian lamas, but also representatives from the Indian Himalayan regions, Ladakh, Spiti, Arunachal Pradesh, and the Sikkim, as well as Bhutan, Nepal, Kalmyka, and West. There followed a free and enthusiastic exchange of ideas, where everyone spoke of the delight of being part of this historic meeting. Yet they all individually expressed their concerns about the future of Nalanda tradition that forms the heart of Tibetan Buddhism. There was a wide approval of the need to create a common platform, one Buddhist organization, to serve this tradition in all the regions of the world where it is upheld. The representatives from Bhutan, Nepal, and Kalmyka were especially supportive and offered to host the next gatherings to take this initiative further. In addition, the conference delegates complimented the recent decision of the Mongolian government to institutionalize and recognize the incarnations, including Gesun Tambar, the spiritual leader of Mongolian Buddhism. Owing to unfortunate circumstances, the 9th Gesun Tambar has been unable really to serve the benefit the Mongolian people. However, he recently made a statement saying that since he had been unable to serve the Mongolian people, he would be reborn in Mongolia as a Mongolian in order to serve Mongolian Buddhism. This declaration of his, it must be said, has completely fulfilled the deepest wishes of people of Mongolia. Furthermore, the decision of the Mongolian government to grant citizenship to the 9th Gesun Tambar complements this process. When I explained that the present Gesun Tambar Rinpoche had given his word that he would be reborn in Mongolia, it opened up the whole question of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's reincarnation. The entire gathering expressed in varying degrees the deep concerns about the future of the institution of the Dalai Lamas, being mindful of the plight of the Panchen Rinpoche. The dual role of His Holiness the Dalai Lama was acknowledged that while he has a historic and moral role as a leader of the Tibetan people, at the same time he is also the preeminent leader of the Nalanda tradition. It was felt that his latter role as Buddhist leader places this question squarely within the realm of the teacher and student relationship, and means that not simply the Tibetans, but all Buddhists following this tradition should have a voice on this issue, which would include the determining of the future institution of the Dalai Lamas. We Mongolian Buddhists are fortunate today to live in a free and sovereign nation. Therefore, we are keenly aware of the special responsibility that we must shoulder. Working with you all, we are prepared and determined to remain active in pursuing some of the key ideas that were discussed in Ulaanbaatar. This includes the establishment of the common platform or international organization that represents our shared tradition, or and that will allow us to work together to make the Buddha Dharma an important instrument in creating a more compassionate world, while at the same time preserving our distinctive institutions.
Монгол зохиогдсон хордын үеэр Бурхны шишний өөр уламжлалуудыг оролцуулсан хордон тэдгээрийг хамтран ажиллахад чухал алхам болж ирээдүйд Бурхны шишний хөгжүүлэхэд баттай суурь болж болохыг нийт төлөөлөгчид онцлон тэмдэглэж байсныг дурдхан зүйтэй. Бурхны шишин баян дэлхий даяар тэр дундан баруун дэлгэрч байгаа энэ үед Атланта хотод зохиогдож байгаа шиг хорлууд нь Бурхны шишинтнуудыг агуу их хүнд итгэл эвх нэгдэлд хүргэж чадна гэдэгт би итгэж байна. Та бүхэндээ баярлсан талархсан илэрхийлье.
I would again like to thank Emory and the other sponsors for organizing this important gathering. During our recent conference in Mongolia, it was emphasized by many participants that regular or coordinated meetings of the various Buddhist traditions would be a crucial step and bring stability to our work together, as well as playing an important role in the future development of Buddhism, particularly with the spread of our traditions around the world, and especially here in the West. Gatherings such as this one here in Atlanta can only lead, I believe, to greater respect and harmony within Buddhism at large. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Khampa Lama and Venerable Monk Botar, for that report. Thank you. I think we will be holding this message in our hearts throughout this conference, not only because of this fine report that you presented, Your Eminence, but also because of the words of His Holiness, who reminded us that the root of our tradition comes from Nalanda. And so much of what we must do now is to examine how we can strengthen those roots. And we're here all to do that. We will continue this discussion throughout the conference, and it is certainly our sincere hope that as a body we will be able to move forward with strength to fulfill these wishes. Thank you very much.
Jigden Tori Changto Tawe Mik, Silam Kambe Tube, Nyesune, Deletawa Dinjan Lamata, Jesu Kimbete La Kubetu. Your Holiness, His Eminence Nganden Rinpoche, Most Venerable Khampo Lama, Honorable Gary Hawk, Honorable Lobsang Nyatala, Your Excellency, Kalun Tripa Professor Samdhong Rinpoche, Your Excellency Gary Rinpoche, Venerable members of the Sangha, and most distinguished chairs, speakers, panelists, and the conference participants. It is my honor to welcome you to this meeting of the International Conference on Tibetan Buddhism. My name is Lobsang Tenzin, and I'm the director of Emory Tibet Partnership, a program designed to bridge and enrich the Western and Tibetan traditions here at Emory and beyond. For an auspicious beginning to this conference, I would like to invite the Venerable monks of Drepung Losari Monastery to offer the brief invocation chants.